Isabella and a fateful family evening, a story of infidelity. Isabella begins her story with a confession of shame for what happened. She describes herself as open-hearted, loving fun and adventure, and in a wonderful relationship with Lucas, her beloved. However, she says, one day everything changed. Isabella's parents organized a large family gathering, bringing together numerous relatives, including cousins. The house was filled with joyful laughter and warm embraces. Isabella eagerly anticipated seeing her family, whom she hadn't seen in a long time. Among the guests was Samuel, her cousin. Isabella remembered him as a boy, with whom she used to play at family celebrations during their childhood. However, Samuel's arrival made a stunning impression on her. Before her stood not the chubby boy she remembered, but a grown, matured, and incredibly attractive young man. Isabella admits she was astonished by his transformed appearance. She tried to focus on greeting other relatives, but thoughts of Samuel wouldn't leave her mind. Isabella wondered how she could have not noticed him before. Her embarrassment didn't escape the notice of her best friend Laura, who, seeing Isabella's admiring gaze, whispered in her ear, "Isabella, who is that? Sammy, you're looking at him like he's a magazine cover model?" Isabella, blushing, tried to joke it off, but deep down, she knew her friend was right. During dinner, Isabella tried to enjoy the company of her loved ones, but her thoughts were elsewhere. Lucas, her boyfriend, was engrossed in conversation with her uncles and cousins, which gave Isabella an opportunity to discreetly observe Samuel. The evening was filled with music, dancing, and games, but the image of her cousin remained in her mind. She felt strange, experiencing such feelings for a relative. As the evening progressed, Isabella found her attraction to Samuel intensifying. The music created a celebratory atmosphere, and she danced with Lucas and other relatives, but her gaze constantly returned to her cousin. She couldn't resist the inexplicable pull toward him. Even while dancing with Lucas, Isabella couldn't shake thoughts of Samuel. She felt a strange excitement, and each time she saw him, she tried to suppress her feelings. However, some irresistible force compelled her to look his way again and again. A moment came when Isabella and Samuel had to dance together. Her heart pounded wildly, and as their eyes met, she felt a spark that took her breath away. It was an exhilarating yet embarrassing moment. During the dance, the touch of their bodies only intensified her feelings. A certain sexual tension arose between them. During the dance, Isabella mentally transported herself to a dream world where only she and Samuel existed. She tried to focus on their conversation, but his eyes and smile disoriented her. It seemed he read her thoughts and understood all her feelings. Despite the guilt, she couldn't resist her attraction to her cousin. It was confusing and frightening. She tried to build a barrier between them, but the chemistry was undeniable. The dance ended, and Isabella and Samuel returned to the guests. She tried to keep her distance from him, but her thoughts were consumed by his image. For the rest of the evening, she tried to act normal, but felt her mind and heart were in different dimensions. She danced with Lucas, chatted with relatives, but the moment of intimacy with her cousin kept replaying in her head. By midnight, Isabella felt tired and heavy from the rush of emotions. The drinks she'd consumed only intensified her state. She decided she needed to rest in her room. Approaching Lucas, she said she was tired and wanted to lie down for a bit. Lucas understood her wish and wished her good night. He wished her good night, and she, feeling a sense of relief, headed to her room. The path there felt like a complex labyrinth of conflicting emotions. Thoughts of Samuel's presence that evening wouldn't leave her. A sense of confusion intertwined with guilt, yet at the same time, she felt a thrill from the inexplicable chemistry that had arisen between them. Once in her room, she sank onto the bed, exhausted. Silence enveloped her, but her inner world remained full of questions. What was Samuel doing now? How could an attraction to her own cousin have developed? These questions had no easy answers. Fatigue gradually overcame her. Closing her eyes, she tried to find peace amidst the swirling emotions. But the harder she tried to fall asleep, the more tangled her thoughts became. Time seemed to stand still, and the most incredible fantasies bloomed in her mind. Waking up, What felt like only 20 minutes later, she felt a sudden need to use the restroom. The party continued downstairs, and her body was beginning to show signs of fatigue and the effects of alcohol. With sleepy steps, she made her way to the bathroom. Upon exiting, she encountered an unexpected surprise. Her cousin Samuel was standing by the door. "Isabella, I thought you'd already left," he said with surprise. "No, Samuel, I just lay down to rest because I felt tired." "Are you also taking a break?" she replied with a smile. Samuel shrugged and playfully remarked, "Yeah, but then I thought you might get lost on your way back to your room, so I decided to come to your rescue." His sense of humor always brought a smile to her face, and this time was no exception. Between laughs and jokes, an idea came to her. She invited Samuel to her room for a little chat. After all, there was nothing interesting left at the party, and she desperately wanted to share her feelings with someone. Once in her room, they settled on the bed and began an easy conversation. They talked about life, dreams, and adventures. The conversation flowed effortlessly, as if there were no barriers between them. But gradually, something began to change. Their glances became more intense, and hints of flirtation crept into their talk. She felt an attraction to Samuel, and it was obvious that he felt something special for her too. She tried to ignore these feelings and focus on the conversation, but it became increasingly difficult. What was happening? She felt embarrassed and guilty for experiencing such feelings for her cousin. To distract herself, she mentioned Lucas, her boyfriend. "You know, Samuel, I've been with Lucas for 3 years now. He's a wonderful guy, and we have a lot of plans for the future," she said, trying to change the subject. Samuel nodded and looked into her eyes. "I'm happy for you, Isabella. You truly look happy together. It's clear you get along well," he said, with genuine warmth in his voice. This diffused the tension a little. Was she letting her emotions lead her into a dangerous zone? She knew she needed to get rid of these forbidden thoughts. Continuing her conversation with Samuel, she decided to lie down on the bed to feel more comfortable. The conversation remained pleasant, but the atmosphere began to shift. She felt a slight chill and decided to pull the blanket over herself. Between laughs and jokes, she offered Samuel, "Do you want to lie down with me? It's a bit cool here." He replied quickly and humorously, "Sure, why not? Better to share the warmth, right?" To her surprise, Samuel got into bed and covered himself with the blanket. She was speechless and felt a slight flutter of nerves. What was happening? Although the invitation had been innocent, the atmosphere became more charged than she had anticipated. The slight intoxication from the party drinks was making itself known, so she said nothing and allowed Samuel to stay close, but deep down, she knew it was dangerous. Emotions and desires hung in the air, and they were hard to ignore. Silence enveloped them. She didn't know what to say or how to act. Her heart pounded wildly, and her mind was full of contradictory thoughts. She knew it was wrong, but at the same time, she felt a strong attraction to Samuel that she couldn't ignore. Their gazes met. The spark that had ignited between them at the party flared with renewed intensity. Desires and attraction were close, hidden, waiting for the right moment to break free. For a moment, she lost herself in his eyes and forgot everything else, but then realized how dangerous this was. She couldn't continue down this path, betray Lucas's trust, and jeopardize their relationship. She tried to look away and keep her distance, but Samuel slowly moved closer. Their faces were inches apart, and the air was thick with tension and desire. She knew it was wrong, but in that moment it was hard to resist. The pull was too strong, and they merged into a kiss. At that moment, she forgot about her boyfriend. There was only her and her cousin lost in the fleeting desire. Their hands intertwined and slid beneath the sheets, exploring every curve of their bodies. Their caresses were tender and full of longing, as if their hearts were speaking their own language. Amidst the darkness of the room, they allowed themselves to be carried away by passion and had sex. She couldn't believe what was happening, but in that moment, she forgot everything and simply let herself be swept away by the moment, giving into a momentary impulse. However, soon, like an inexorable wave, a feeling of guilt crashed over the protagonist. What had she done? A sense of betrayal gnawed at her from within, like a corrosive sorrow. The silent glance she exchanged with Samuel spoke volumes. This could not continue. They had let fleeting passion overcome them, and now they had to hide what had happened. Without a word, Samuel got out of bed and, trying not to attract attention, quickly dressed. Words were unnecessary, as both understood that a mistake had occurred, that they had done something reprehensible. Samuel hastily left the room, trying to avoid suspicion while she remained lying there, trying to process what had happened. Her thoughts raced like a roller coaster, and she didn't know how to cope with the emotions raging inside her. On one hand, she was overwhelmed by the excitement of the moment she had shared with Samuel. It was intense, passionate, and for a moment she had succumbed to the desire that enveloped them. But at the same time, she knew she had acted wrongly, and under no circumstances could anyone ever find out about it. After this tense and difficult moment, she tried to pretend that nothing had happened. Curled up in bed, she closed her eyes and tried to fall asleep, as if hoping that with sleep, the burden of guilt and confusion would also disappear. However, sleep was slow to come. Her mind was agitated, and the images of what had happened with her cousin Sam gave her no peace. She couldn't stop thinking about the possible consequences if the truth came out, and how it would affect her life and the lives of those close to her. Finally, she drifted into a restless sleep, full of nightmares and guilt. Waking up was difficult, and a sense of anxiety overwhelmed her at the memory of what had transpired. When she finally emerged from her room, she found the party had ended and her relatives had left. Everything around her seemed different, as if the world had changed while she was lost in her thoughts. Her heart ached at the thought of what she had done and how her family would react if they knew. Trying to remain calm, she acted as if nothing had happened. She smiled and tried to chat casually with the few remaining family members, but her thoughts were far away. She felt lost and bewildered, unsure how to behave or what to say after those tense moments. The sun shone brightly again, as if nothing had happened. The next day passed in its usual rhythm, but inside the protagonist, her world had turned upside down. She woke up with mixed feelings. On one hand, she felt relief that no one suspected her secret liaison with her cousin Samuel. It was her little secret, but at the same time, it filled her with guilt and confusion. Her boyfriend Lucas had left for work early that morning. She tried to remain calm and go about her day as if nothing had happened. She met with friends, and they chatted about trivial things, but memories and emotions from her encounter with Samuel constantly resurfaced in her mind. It was hard for her to focus and keep a smile on her face. At times, she was tormented by guilt for laughing and having fun with friends, while her life was full of secrets and lies. In the evening, returning home, she sat in her room, immersed in thoughts about what had happened. She couldn't believe what she had done, yet at the same time, she felt an adrenaline rush from the adventure. It was thrilling and passionate, but she also knew it was a mistake. Although this fleeting romance with her cousin brought her moments of desire and excitement, she was not proud of her actions. From that fateful day, she decided to cut off all contact with Samuel. She understood that this would be best for her and for Lucas. She didn't want to risk their relationship or succumb to temptation again. The protagonist admits that this was the only time she cheated on Lucas. It was a moment of weakness, and she cannot say she is proud of it. Today, they are still together, and their relationship is strong and harmonious. Moreover, they have plans for the future. They dream of starting a family. They have discussed the possibility of having a child and how wonderful it would be for both of them to take this important step together.